for my next project, I'm going to be taking another tablecloth. I think it's a tablecloth. I'll show you what it looks like. I think it's beautiful, and I'm going to be making a dress out of it. That's my plan. So I'm going to show you the material real quick. Of course, it's from the Goodwill. Probably cost me $5. So it's pretty big, and I have a little plan. I'm not going to use a set pattern to do this. I'm actually going to use a combination of patterns. So for the top middle bodice part of it, I'm going to use my self-drafted pattern that I showed in a previous video. I'll insert probably some footage here just to give you an idea of what it is. And I also use that same self-drafted pattern to, no, did I use that one? I'll show you it. But it's a self-drafted pattern. I talked about self-drafted patterns in the video, but the pattern that I show myself making in that clip is not the pattern that I use for the bodice of that outfit. I did make two, and I used the better of the two. So self-drafted pattern for the bodice piece. I'm going to use Dreamsicle Designs pattern for the sleeves, and those are the same sleeves that I made the two-piece set out of the tablecloth. Same thing. And then for the skirt portion, I'm using a tutorial or like a pattern explanation from Coraline Street, and I will link to everything below. And then I want to try to do puffs at the cuffs. I'm going to try to find some tutorial online to figure out how to do that, the best way to do it, or I'll have to just make it up as I go along. But I want, you know, those bubble skirts. So the bubble skirts, bubble dresses, I want the bubble to be at the end of the cuff. So yeah, I got to figure out how to make that. So hopefully I have enough material to do all of that. I wanted to introduce this because I've been holding on to this for a while and I want to get started. And if I just start cutting, then I won't have any footage of what the material looked like before. So I had to just hurry up and just stop everything and just do this intro real fast. So if you're interested in what this is going to look like as a dress, hopefully, then I hope you keep watching. Okay, so I'm going to talk through the steps that I'm going to take to complete this. And the first thing I need to do for this piece is to cut 2 strips, since I need the most material for the skirt portion. And it's going to be 2 tiers for the skirt. And the first tier needs to be 56 inches going this way, and then 24 inches this way. And then the second tier needs to be 87 inches this way and 19 inches this way. So I'm going to fold it to make the cuts easier. And because this is already the bottom of the tablecloth, I'm going to leave this as the bottom of the dress once it's all done, so I don't have to do a hem at the bottom. And now that the tiers are cut, I'm going to use this portion here to make the sleeves. And because it's already folded, I'm just going to put the pattern piece on top and then make the cuts. And then just want to get a little bit closer and show you that this is where the border, we know the border goes around the whole thing. I'm going to have to use part of that border edge as part of the sleeve, but I'll be interested to see how that's going to turn out once the sleeve is sewed together. The edge of the back of the sleeve is going to end up being right on that line where the seam is. And then here's the last section that I'm going to use to make the bodice piece front and back, and I need a folded front and 2 halves for the back because I'm going to have an invisible zipper going up the back. And to take advantage of all the fabric that I can, I'm actually going to separate the seam here because I want to use this strip here for the cuffs. So I'm just going to seam rip this open and detach the pieces. Bodice pieces all set. I do want to change the style because I kind of want to try something. So this is the front piece and I want the front to come down kind of like a triangle. I want it to be higher on the sides, like near the hips, and then I want it to come down. And then I guess the back, I'll just leave the back even. But I do want to try that in the front, and this is something I just thought of, so I don't know how it's all going to work out, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to just sew the side seams and the shoulder seams together, and then I will work on changing the pattern in the front. Alright, all the serging is done. I just ended up serging the bottom of this when I didn't need to, but that's okay. Cut all the little pieces off. And then clip and sew. Oh, I did the sleeves too, so I'll put those to the side. And I also, when I cut this back piece, the piece that's open, this is where the zipper is going to go. The invisible zipper is going to be up the back, and I did not add seam allowance for the zipper. So I might have to make modifications for that. Although this bodice is a little bit wider, I did take it in a tiny bit. I don't know if I took it in too much to add to the back, but we'll see. And one of the things I like to do is use this magnet sometimes. I just combine this with a piece of duct tape, and it's a magnet that I just happen to have, and it's flat and square. So I put it on the plate here, and I mark where I need to sew. And this worked perfectly because I put it at the 1 centimeter. Now I'm doing a 1/2 inch, so let me see. Actually, since I want to account for extra seam allowance in the back where the zipper is going to go, I'm going to do 1 centimeter for this one too, which I think is this first line here. Yes. Okay, let's go. Alright, I tried it on and I decided that I need to cut 6.5 inches up on each side, put a pin, and then the other thing I'm going to do is come up 3 inches from the bottom right in the middle. So I want the slope to come down like this. I might even make it even a little bit lower. I'm going to do 3. This is going to be the tip of the triangle. And in the back, I had originally added another little triangle going down, but I'm not going to do that because I just want that to be in the front. So I'm just going to cut this little triangle piece off and let the back be a straight line. I'm making some bias tape. I don't know if this is considered bias tape because I didn't cut it on the bias. I'm still learning all about these words, its terminology and everything, but I cut a strip of material. I have this little tool right here. You put the thick side in and it folds it 2 times, and this is what you use to cover rough edges depending on what you're doing. So I cut this long enough to go around the neckline all the way around because yeah, I need to seal that off. I want to do the whole top part of the dress before I attach it to the skirt piece. So I'm doing this now and just getting it ready, and this is what it looks like. So that little contraption, this little thing right here, it folds it inside there so that it bends this side down and this side up, and then you're left with this strip, and then you can close this up and sew it down if you need to. But I'm gonna put this around the neckline of the dress. And then this is what it looks like. So now this gets folded over, up, and then rolling it around to the edge. So it's like this. So I'm going to iron it down this way, all the way around, and then I'm going to fold it again and then iron it down, and then I'll sew it right at that line. So it'll be just a nice little stitch going around. So now I'm getting ready to add the zipper on, but before I do that, I want to add some interfacing because this material, it's not the thickest. It's a very good material, but I want to give it some reinforcement, so I'm just going to add a strip of interfacing on both sides. So I'm going to iron that on now. did a stitch to close up this seam here, pinned the zipper down. Now I need to cut through the seam that I made. I did it loosely on the widest stitch line I could, and so now I'm just cutting into it so I can open it up, and then I'm going to undo the zipper, and then I'm going to use the zipper foot on the sewing machine to sew down each side. The zipper has to be sewed on while it's open, but now that I have it pinned down, hopefully this stays completely closed like this as much as possible. That's the goal for it being an invisible zipper. And this is how much is sticking out the bottom. So this part I'm going to sew onto the skirt part after I add it to the bottom of this shirt part. All right, so just cutting through that, and I'm going to go all the way down, undo the zipper, and then sew it on. So now I'm just going to cut all those loose strings off, try it on, and then add the darts that I need to. And I'll tell you where I'm going to add them. Probably going to add 2 in the front. Okay, so I came up with these darts here, the same distance from the little triangle thing. And then just go up to about there on either side. And that's how I'm going to take it in. And then next thing I'm going to do is work on these pieces here for the skirt. I will add some gathering stitches into this skirt portion and then gather it all together, and then I'll attach it to the bottom of this. Okay, so now for adding the sleeve to the bodice piece. This is the back. So we want to put the garment inside out. So it's inside out right here, and it's facing the back. And the sleeve needs to be right side out. So I already marked, this is the front of the sleeve, this is the back, because both sleeves have this seam right here going down on the same part, which is on the back of the sleeve. Facing forward, the sleeve is going to be placed inside the garment with the front of the sleeve facing the front of the garment, the back of the sleeve facing the back, and then we go in through the armhole and then just align all of the seams. Pretty much the one seam here is really what we can align. So take the seam from the sleeve and line it with the seam of the side seam of the bodice piece, and then just clip those together. And I'm doing this pretty much in real time to show exactly this process in case anybody's interested. And what I really like about this sleeve pattern is that it creates natural pleats at the top, because it's the top where the shoulder is a little bit it's tall, so it has extra material there, which I do like. So this is only my second time making a sleeve with this pattern, but I feel like I probably will use it a lot because of that. And I already clipped the other sleeve on and it looks good, so I think I will like it, and I think I'll continue to use it. So just gonna go up till I get to the top, lining everything up smoothly as I go up because I want the pleats to be at the top. Okay, so that's going smoothly all the way up, and then once I get here, I'm just going to try to match it with kind of the middle of this thing, of the sleeve, and just match that with the shoulder seam. So this is where there's bagginess in here, and this is where I'm gonna put the 2 pleats. I'm just gonna add those in from this direction, and starting this, so this is that middle clip. So I'm just gonna bend the fabric this way, roll it over like this. And then put a clip there. And I'll do the same thing again. And it's pretty much enough room for 2 pleats on both sides, I think, because that's what I have on the other arm. Alright, I decided to do another strip of bias tape, or what I'm calling bias tape, and I'm going to attach it to this part here. This is that front area. This is already curved under on these 2 edges, so I'm going to add the bias tape with edges hanging off, and I'm going to attach it here, and then I'm going to go up the curve to here. And then everything wraps over, and then I'll tuck the ends behind the sides here, and then I'll attach the skirt later. Here is tier number 1 on the skirt portion of the dress. I already added 2 very loose stitches for the gathering. I already have the bias tape, or whatever you want to call it, attached to the bottom here. So I'm just going to line that up, the edge of that triangle up with where the pin is, because this part is going to be top stitched down to the top of this, right at the middle. And the pin is there, so it'll probably be about here. And then I'm going to gather the sides, all the sides, and I want all the pleating and the ruching and everything to be at the sides, from here over and from here over, all the way around to the back. And so I'm just going to pin it where I think it would probably go, and then once I start gathering the sides in, I'll pin it to the back of the shirt, or the top part of the dress. So I'm going to do that now. Hopefully everything works out. Again, this is all trial and error. There's no pattern or anything. I'm just kind of like piecing the dress together. Here it is connected, but because I had to sew it up a little higher because this was a little bit too long. So now I'm going to go underneath and trim all of this down. I am going to remove the gathering stitches from both of these layers, this tier and the other tier, but I'm also going to trim this down, and then I'm going to overlock these two pieces of seam allowance together. I just want to show all around. This is the way it looks, just that extra piece from the top tier. So this is that tier that's right above it, and then it's sewed to here. And again, just going to trim that down. And then actually now I'm just going to top stitch this area here. This is that front part. I'm just going to top stitch down, then across here, up this way, and then up just a little bit to seal this in, and then I'll go in and close the back. So I didn't do that yet, but I'll again, of course, cut all these loose strings, and then sew this part down to the zipper, and then close up the whole back, because right now the whole back is just open. And yep, once I do that, last thing will be is to put the cuffs on. Okay, I'm working on the cuffs now. So I cut off some of this is the trimming that was on the tablecloth. This was going around the whole border. This is around the bottom of the dress. So I cut a 20-inch length and I overlocked the edges. And then I cut a 10-inch length and I cut it in half and overlocked those edges too. So this is going to be what I'm going to use to make the cuff, the bubble on the cuff. The steps that I'm taking is just to sew this right sides together like this. So I'm measuring it around the cuff where it needs to go, and I'm just going to put a pin here because I need the cuff to be right at the edge of the sleeve. So I'm going to pin it right there, but I don't want it to stay. I want it to slant up this way. So just to remind myself of what I need to do, I'm going to put this pin in here. Because when this sleeve is on my hand, it's going to be like around this part. So I don't want it to be like tight around my thumb. So it's kind of going to be like this. And so I just want it to just go up. So yeah, I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to sew this together as well, but just straight. So I'm just going to fold that right sides together and just sew a nice stitch right along there. And then let me do those 2 steps and then I'll show you what I'm doing. Okay, here are the pieces sewn together, and I ironed the seam allowance flat on that one and then on this one too. So this is what I was saying. So I sewed it at that slant when it's on, so that it gives me some room here. Okay, so now that these 2 pieces are like this, this needs to be like this, and then I need to turn this right side out and then line up the seam here with this one. And I need to stuff all of this inside this piece because I need to sew these together from inside here. So I'm going to clip these edges together. And then as I'm clipping them together, of course, there's so much material here, I'm going to pleat this inside here as I go around and make some giant pleats on the larger material. Okay, so that's that part, and I can take this to the sewing machine and sew it because I can fit this underneath and sew inside here. And then once I take this off, then I will pleat this around the edge of this. So I'm going to top stitch this part directly to the sleeve like this, and I'm making sure to keep the seams lined up. So this seam is lined up with this seam, and then when I attach this to the sleeve, I will make sure to line up that seam as well. So I'll have to pin it and then pleat this all the way around and then attach it so that it looks like this one. Alright, so because of how intricate this sewing part is, I thought it was important enough to have to do this with the sewing machine. So I took that piece off there, and I'm going to just put this through the sewing machine so that this can be sewed to the sleeve cuff. I did this other one by the machine. I went around 2 times. So now I'm going to do the same thing here. Okay, everything's done now for both of these, and then attach this piece here. Take this to the sewing machine and sew it because I can fit this underneath and sew inside here. Then I will pleat this around the edge of this. So I'm going to top stitch this part directly to the sleeve like this, and I'm making sure to keep the seams lined up. So this seam is lined up with this seam, and then when I attach this to the sleeve, I will make sure to line up that seam as well. So I'll have to pin it and then pleat this all the way around and then attach it so that it looks like this one. Now these are on the edge. Got that big puffy piece in here, and then again these are on the edge, so I'm just gonna sew around here and then come back when that's done. And then I'm gonna tuck the balloon part inside here, and this is how the cuff is going to be, a nice little balloony thing. And then on the inside of the sleeve, I'll reach in here and then this part is going to fold in and go, I'm going to sew it by hand around this part. It'll sew right along this line. All right. I'll see you at the reveal.